Good afternoon. This is the Torah on Parashat Naso, the second Parsha in Sefer Bamidbar, numbers in English. It is the longest single Parsha, going to 176 verses. Now, summarize briefly the Parsha, despite its length, the Torah portion, there is only really a few major topics here. Then what I want to do is try to connect them and show just a sample of the deepness of what on the surface seems fairly basic and repetitious. Now, it starts with the duties of two groups of Levim when they were disassembling the Mishkan and transporting it to different locations, and then rebuilt by the team. It discusses their services of Gershon and Merari to the tribes, and then after that it says they had to purify the camp because with the establishment of the Mishkan, Hashem's presence was going to be there. Everyone who had any kind of spiritual impurity had to leave, and all these people sent out of the camp. Then talks about if one is guilty of a sin, a woman, or against God, he has to confess the sin. He has to make a restitution of principal, probably plus 20%. And all these had to be sent to the Kohen that became his gifts. It then tells about two separate questions. One is the Sota, is the woman who was suspected of, who was isolated herself with a man, or other suspicious behavior that made her husband was jealousy, and there was no proof that she was eyewitnesses that she was actually committing an adulterous relationship. She was made to go through a whole, brought her to her husband brought her to the sanctuary, Mishkan, and she went through a whole procedure, and then you're drinking special water, which if she was guilty of adultery, both she and the person she had been with, the paramour, would both die painfully. But if not, she was pure. She would be guaranteed a child within a year. And the next thing is the Nazir, which is somebody who wanted to take on an oath that he separated himself from both wine and wine brandy and any grapes, uses any part of the grape. And on the top of that, he couldn't cut his hair in all that time, and he couldn't be exposed to a dead person. This, unlike the Kohen, even he couldn't even do it for his father, mother, brother, or sisters. And if he was exposed accidentally to a dead person, he had to restart it. Then goes through the whole procedure. Now, after that, the Parsha then goes on to the Kohanim blessings, which we hear with Laretz on the Yantivs and Eretz Israel every day, they're said. Then, after Hashem finished the Mishkan, this Parsha is going back to the time when the Mishkan was actually assembled, which we had at the end of Sefer Shemos. And the princes brought a collective gift to help transport wagons and oxen. Now, why did they contribute this? Because the princes of the tribes, Sion, figured that the people would not contribute everything that's needed, and then they placed that everything that was needed that was not given. To their amazement, so much was contributed by the rest of the people that there was nothing left, and therefore they brought this. And then those oxen and wagons were assigned to the various Levium. And then they wanted to bring an offering. And there were 12 offerings, 12 princes. Hashem said, bring one a day. The rest of the parsha, which is why it's of such length, describes all those gifts. And what is amazing here is that all 12 of the princes, all 12 tribes, offered the same gifts, yet they had a different meaning too. There's two things I would like to do in this Bar Torah. I want to show how these themes tie together, these different parts of the question. And then I would like to focus just to give a small flavor of the depth of what these different gifts made that had a different meaning for each one of the tribes. Now, what is the common underlying theme of this parsha? Is holiness, kedusha. And if one looks at it, there was nothing more kodesh other than Hashem's actual presence. It was the sanctuary, the Mishkan. There's nothing more holy than that. And this is dealing with the very sacred obligations of carrying it, transporting it when they move from one place to the other in the desert. Now, it's a theme of purity and holiness because Hashem was going to dwell with us. His house had to keep being Mishkan. Now, it's saying that all the impure people have to be out of there because it had various forms of ritual impurity. It was very important because Hashem's presence was going to be in the camp, which would raise in sanctuary, which raises to a whole new level, be Hashem's dwelling place on earth. What that means exactly, speaking in the previous parsha, and Sefer Shmos. In any event, that had to be that level of kedusha. The same with the ones that had to bring korbanot for the arrears they did. That was also because there had to be the highest level of kedusha, the highest level of connectedness to Hashem. Now, that is another, then connecting the rest of the parsha. The one of the most holy things, if it's a proper relationship, is between husband and wife, and it creates all kinds of terrible things if there isn't that connection and there is adultery. And that was preparing to purify the Jewish people from that. And if any wrongdoers were guilty of that, both the woman and her paramour would both, lover would both die after she drank water, bitter waters. And then the Nazir. What was a Nazir? He or she was somebody who separated themselves, they explained, from wine, products, grapes, grape seeds, you name it, anything to do with a grape. And they had to do that for whatever period, usually 30 to 60 days. They took on this Naziris, and they could not cut their hair, and they could not touch their bodies. If they accidentally did, they had to start all over, bring a sacrifice and start all over again. Again, what was the tie-in to Sota explains that excessive drinking of alcoholic beverages could lead to immorality, and they had, and again, elevating it. Now, at the end, interestingly enough, the Nazir had to bring a korban. He had to reach the fill his days, sacrifice. Now, what was the reason? Because being a Nazir was not encouraged, particularly because it meant that somebody could not control the urges. That they said anybody who saw the whole ceremony with the alleged adulterous woman, Sota felt wanted to abstain from wine. It obviously goes deeper, but that was one part of it. And then what happens is the Nazir was separating himself. Now, we're not supposed to do this kind of ritual. We're not supposed to do this kind of separation. What we are supposed to do is face the challenges, including alcoholic beverages, for example. It can be used for good purposes for making kiddush on Shabbat. The wine that's the bracha, they say it after circumcision, when naming the baby, many other ceremonies. And that again is purification. So why did the Nazir have to, by abstaining from that, was in effect not facing the challenges, but trying to run away from them, separate from society. And again, that was not particularly encouraged, but it was a concession of human nature. Now, after that, the Parsha then goes on to say that they, Moshe built Mishkan, assembled it, was already a peaceful part. That's when the princes came and offered their gifts, the wagons and the oxen, and they all wanted to bring an offering to honor Hashem. Again, the concept of Kedusha was now residing with us, so to speak, in a sanctuary. And there were 12 gifts. Now, on the surface, they seem to be all identical. And what I would like to do briefly, the Midrashim go on this at quite a bit of length, pages and pages. And of course, each one of these was a way to show each tribe's loyalty to Hashem and how they were trying to get close to Hashem. So all of this is about Kedusha, spiritual, and getting close to Hashem. Now, I want to show it first, we give one sample on a collective basis that applies to the whole nation and these gifts, and then I'm going to show it on the individual level. And what was offered was each day at Karat, Kesef She'atam Shloshim V'Meir Shkalim, Mizra Chad, Kesef Shivim Shekel B'Shekel V'Kodesh, Shneim Malay, Solet Ulav V'Shemen Mincha, Kaf Achad Asra Zav B'Malay, Koteres Bar Achad, and Ben Boker, Ayl Achad Kavash, Achad Ben Shnato, La'ola, Sari Izim, Achad Lachatos, and Zebak Shnei Shlamim, Boker Shnayim Elam Kamishim, Yotud Kamishim Kavashim, B'nei Shinach Mashizeh Korban, then Nachshim and Manidel. What does that all translate to? One silver bowl weighing 130 shekels, and one silver sacrificial basin weighing 70 shekels by this sanctuary standard, both filled with the best wheat, grade of wheat needed with olive oil for a meal offering. One golden incense bowl weighing 10 shekels filled with incense. One young bull, one ram, and one yearling sheep for a burnt offering. One goat for a sin offering, and for the peace sacrifice 2 oxen, 5 rams, 5 male goats, and 5 yearling sheep. Now, this was the offering of Nachshon, son of Ammidav, tribe Yehuda. Now, I'd like to focus first on one of the gifts, which is the first of this one silver bowl weighing 130 shekels. That in Hebrew is Kuf Lamed. The Hebrew letter Kuf is 100 and Lamed is 30. Each Hebrew letter has a numerical equivalent. And what I would like to briefly quote from is the Shar Pesukim. And it says in the Shar Pesukim, what does this number 130 represent? Well, it's explained that it's connected, opposite, or connected to the 130 years. Now, what 130 years we talking about? This is showing the formation as intimately involved with the formation of the Jewish people. Um, what is it showing? It's the birth of, after 130 years after the original Chet of Adam and Chava, and after they had the first two children, um, it's connected to, it's a reminder of Moshe Rabbeinu. How is it? Because he was born from his mother, who was Yocheved at 130 years, and also he was a Gilgal of Seis, who was born after 130 years of our life, and that was a kapora for Adam Rishon, who for the past 30 years have been doing inappropriate things. In any event, it shows that, in other words, the foundation, or whole foundation, in Moshe Rabbeinu, who is actually constructing the Mishkan, all came, and that's one of the meanings of 130 for all of the gifts. There's individual meanings for each one. Nasim, the princes, and their tribe, respective tribes, but that is one. Now, we have to understand that, again, the theme of purity comes up, as explained by the Megala Mukot, that it says on a day, the Yom Kalot, when Moshe Rabbeinu, he established what did he do? By establishing the temple, excuse me, Mishkan, Moshe removed, as he built it, removed mazikin, or mazikin, or negatives, the dark spiritual forces, and he claimed the whole world. And Hashem helped him with it. Again, there was this partnership, and Hashem, because all he had to do was touch each piece of the Mishkan, which was too heavy for one human being to do, and Hashem miraculously helps bring it up. And Moshe, by doing that, raised us again into this new level of Kedusha, and therefore the 130, which is connected to Moshe, and is there, and Seit was Gilgal of Moshe Rabbeinu. And that explains it on the Klali general level. Now, I just like to go through the gifts, the 130, first of all, several roles, and then I just like to briefly illustrate how the gifts in general have different meanings, and the 130, silver bowl of 130. It says on the first day, Nachshon ben Amidab, Nasi Yehuda offered the sacrifices. And first of all, what's the significance of his name? Nachshon, that was when Ben Yisrael reached the shore of Yam Suf, and the Egyptians were suing him. He went into the waters up to his neck, and that's when Hashem made the ocean. And therefore, for this alone, he became a leader, and his tribe Yehuda merited royalty forever. Now, he knew that Yaakov in the history tribe and Mashiach's arrival. And in other words, he would be the Davidic dynasty would descend from them. And the silver bowl, silver basin, refer to two kings, Shlomo and Mashiach, whose reigns would be worldwide. Both will dominate the sea and the land. The bull represents the oceans, which represent the bowl because they surround the world, and the basins symbolize the land. And weight of the bowl and the basin after the Mashiach would rule over the land and sea, will weigh 130 shekels. That was the numerical value of the world. Mayim, Yamim, Imam, water, oceans, 100, and Shlomo had his own sea in quotation marks to the oceans created by Hashem. He created a round copper mikveh in which the Kohanim immersed themselves in the base of Mikdash, and its circumference was 30 amos. So what is the bowl name? It's equivalent to the 130 shekels. The bowl is equivalent, corresponds to the seas made by Hashem and Shlomo. The basin weighed 70 shekels, indicate Shlomo and Mashiach will rule over the 70 nations. The rest of contain the kings of Yehuda and their forefathers. So there's many other allusions. Now, let's look at another day. Where the second day is Nisanel ben Sor and Nasi of Yissachar. We talk about the Yissachar and Zebulun relationship. The Yissachar would stay in the tents and Torah while Zebulun went traveling and trading. Support Yissachar. They both got credit for the Torah study. Nisanel dedicated Torah study which the Almighty had given, Natan Kal, Moshe, as did all the members of his tribe. And Suar, his name, Sav means from Sar, suffering pain. Close all the Jews weren't seeking enlightenment and counsel in solving their problems. And what was Nisanel's gifts? His offerings go to various aspects of Torah study. For example, you select in Boli basically meant to lose the Torah. Lechem Panim, showbread when had bowls and basins, and the Torah is likened to bread. It's our true sustenance. They were silver, hinting that the Hashem's words are pure silver. The basin's weight of 70 shekels symbolized 70 ways in which the Torah can be expounded. And when Hashem saw the profound reflection behind Nisanel's donations, which alluded to Torah, he lauded them with the words, "This is the offering of Nisanel ben Solar," and so on. So what we should derive from all this is we've just finished Shavuos and had Matan Torah. We should truly derive from this is that on all levels we're going to Kedusha, and one other significance. Just to show this is the gematria of Sulam, ladder, which where Yaakov descended into our heavenly heights, or angels going even further, has a gematria in Hebrew of 130, and so does the word Sinai, which has the gematria of 130. Which shows that as we get closer and closer to Hashem, we were worthy of receiving His Torah, that with His presence in Mishkan. May we all keep going from higher and higher levels of Kedusha after we've gotten a new share of the Torah. Shavuos, good Shabbos, and Shabbat Shalom.